Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
You too.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Hi, Gary. How you doing?
Oh, wonderful. You?
I want to come home.
Soup's done.
Hi, Bill.
You're mute.
Am I?
No,
Can you
Bill.
hear me?
Bill.
Yeah,
Bill is
I was muted. I said I didn't have any meetings tonight, so I thought I'd jump in.
Hey, welcome.
You're Zoom addicted now. Oh, here's Chris. Okay. All right. All right.
Well, we have a quorum.
Yeah, but Rogers, he was here. He was in the city somewhere. Well, his background was in the city. Now he's gone. Hi, Chris. Okay. And where did, oh, Richard, there he is. Roger must have suffered some sort of catastrophic connection issue. Oh, there he is. Hi, Roger. Welcome back. Technical difficulties?
Yeah, my computer just went screeching and locked up.
So do you know if Lindsay's coming to the meeting?
I don't.
Need to wait for her?
Don't think we need to if we have. Do we have Larry?
No.
Right.
We have all the open space people.
Okay. Let me just text Larry. And
Okay.
I might be working tonight.
I thought Tuesday was his free night. We can, I guess, at least call the meeting to order.
Okay. All right. You ready
It's
to go?
6:05 PM.
Yep.
Joint meeting with the Planning Board and the Open Space and Recreation Committee to discuss the OSRD bylaw, their comments. So I'll do a roll call of Planning Board members. Roger Hoyt present. Richard Wright. Richard?
Present.
Hey, Walt Meister?
Present.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll do the,
Yep,
Same.
go ahead. I don't see any others in the waiting room.
now Anna's coming in, but
Who's taking the minutes for this?
I was going to ask Anna to do that. She volunteered the net last time to give Marshall a break, as I
Well,
recall.
Yes, I just arrived, sorry.
And
What
we're
did you
already bring- I believe at
We
the
just
last,
bagged you.
I don't know that we need to record anything more than we discussed the bylaws, the bylaw.
Well, we're
I
gonna finish our meeting afterwards.
Yes, you
Oh.
are. Okay.
right.
I did see, Lorraine, that you sent an email with 3 files of comments. It looks like the one that says it's from Gary is that a
Correct.
live document that I need to
It,
open up or
Um,
something?
it is because he used a computer that's registered in my name, and so the software is in my name. That's why I put his name in the title, so that you can differentiate between his comments and my comments.
All right.
Do you know what I mean? The comments both of them gonna claim that I made the comments, both of those files. But in fact, one of them is Gary's and one of them is mine.
Okay. Do you want me to forward them to?
I sent them to you for whatever purpose you would want
Yeah.
to apply them. If you want your board to review them, if you want to consolidate them, I just wanted to give you some sort of a record.
Okay,
the
is the things
comments.
we'll just generally discuss now and
Yes.
we don't
Yes.
need to go page by page? Is that,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That
Okay.
it take too
that's
long.
that's
I
fine?
just thought this would be a general conversation, and if we want to decide we want to do that, well, then we'll make another
Yeah.
meeting schedule to do that. After you've had a chance to review our comments,
Okay,
and if you have comments back, then send them to us. And then if you wanted to meet again and, come to some sort of, I don't know if it's a
All right.
decision, but some sort of thought process on whether they're valid comments or not. Okay.
all right. There does seem to be something with the state in their changes to the zoning law, referencing OSRD, and I haven't tracked down what it's saying yet, but
I'll look.
whether it's something to do with by right rather than
Okay.
all as a special permit. That could be kind of open-ended if it's by right and we're requiring certain things, and some of them are more performance rated and subjective rather than a definitive yes or no type thing. So not sure how that plays out, but we're going to track that down too.
Before we get further, I just want to open our meeting
Yep.
for the Open Space and Recreation Committee and have a roll call attendance for my committee. And Chairman Lorraine D'Souza, Marshall Dennis,
Present.
present. Chris Pacone,
Present.
Anna Wilkins. Is that Smile? Is she muted?
She mouths present, but I think it was muted.
Is it muted? Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I'm here.
One at a time, one meeting at a time. C. Snow,
Present.
Gary Howland.
Present.
All right. And Anna, did it get through you were taking minutes tonight? Very good. There you
Yeah.
go. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, basically my questions to the planning board are very basic at this point. How can we help other than to slice and dice the current bylaw? What is it that you think that we can do to help you review these bylaws? And do you have any specific questions? Is there certain documentation you want us to try to dig up for you? And then I'd like to know from my members how you want to provide your perspective to the planning board. Should we have another working meeting after this? Excuse me, after this? Do you want to submit them in writing to myself and or Roger? And I have comments from Gary, myself, and Janet, which I've sent, but I haven't heard anything from the rest of you. Do you want to do that tonight, or do you want to do it at a later date, or both?
Maybe I'll first ask Roger, you referred to some state-related enabling legislation or whatever it is relative to
All right.
how municipal bylaws relative to open space and, residential districts are formulated? I mean, is that true?
So state law was changed last month, signed by the governor. And it's all part of a big law, whether it's COVID recovery and all this stuff, but he's incorporated in a lot of the housing choice referendum or whatever, but program that he's been promoting for a few years and working on. And they've tied this all into the package last month. It's got all the, the local appropriations, identifies, hundreds of projects that are earmarked for things, but also they made changes to the Zoning Act, Chapter 40A, and a couple of different things to address housing related issues. And they've changed the affirmative threshold. That used to be 2/3 to pass a zoning amendment, or 2/3 for a special permit on certain things, to just a simple majority.
So whatever those changes are, need to be incorporated into whatever revisions to the open space and
There just is also a section where open OSRD, and I'm not sure completely what it means, has to be allowed by right rather
Okay.
than only a special permit.
Okay.
My
And there's certain
understanding is that it already
aspects of
is.
that. What's that?
My understanding
have,
is it
yes.
already is. Ours has that in the introduction of the
That it
bylaw.
also, right, and maybe in there, and also, but we do require a special permit
Right.
as a public hearing, so I'm not sure. But again, it just, if we don't change anything and there is a conflict, ours is meaningless and the state, whatever the state says, supersedes. As far as some of the other specific things where, we could be at a town meeting if we had 10 bylaw amendments and 2 of them were solely related to housing items, that would be a simple majority, whereas the other items would be a 2/3 majority. So you may get to town meeting and need to count ballots or count hands or something to verify that. Again, if it's if it passes with a obvious majority, then yes, but some things may still be 2/3 majority, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't with that. Also, there's a part, because, and maybe Bill, you have the answer for this, tell me if I'm wrong, we are an MBTA community. We're on the list from DCHD of what they define as a MBTA community. So the part that says we have to have a district where we allow a density of 15 units per acre. It says that it's preferably near a developed area suitable for families and children. That's what it says. If you have, say, a train station in town, it needs to be within a half mile of that. We don't have, that doesn't apply to us because we don't have a train station or some other mode of transport, but yeah, that, and I don't know what happens if you, in the interim, until you enact that into your bylaw. What's I going to say with that? If we do not have that to meet their regulations, then we aren't eligible for certain grant programs. And the way the legislation says, DCHD has to issue some guidelines or recommendations. And right now, they're considering everyone to be into compliance for the purposes of getting the grant funding until they decide you're not. Till they set some criteria for whether you're in compliance or not. And come look at your bylaws and say you haven't done this. I don't know what that means if someone comes in with an application It says the state tells me I can do this. You haven't told me where, so I can do it wherever I want. I don't know if that's the case or not. If that's something we need to get in the bylaw.
Into this particular bylaw or just?
Not into the OSRD, no, but into the general
Zoning, general.
zoning bylaw in a district,
Bylaw.
whatever. But there was some reference to OSRD, and whether we already meet that, we may. You know, other communities have been a little more advanced in getting their zoning in line with what the state is dictating.
Mhm.
So some things they may already comply on.
I don't know that we've ever turned down an application for an OSRD. And the only three that I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
You know, we told you
Um,
about. I don't
So I don't
know.
know that we've turned anything down other than, you know, sometimes they are so problematic, they just withdraw, but
Could they be contested as, you know, unreasonable? Because no one's gonna want to, the problem is no one's gonna want to come up with the money to
Yeah.
do it the way that we're requiring them to do it, or we're not requiring them to do it. That we're suggesting be required.
I guess what are the biggest hurdles with it and in the current way that it's structured and how can we simplify it and make it like something that people want to do? Because I think in general, you know, there's a lot of benefit for both the developer and, you know, they get more houses and, you know, we get some more buffer zone around where the development is. But I'd love to hear from the planning, you know, how doesn't it work and how would you want to see it work? Because
if the goal is to concentrate your development in one area and leave as much as you can undisturbed, and the incentive to do that is you get more units, that's an encouragement to do it. But if the process is so elaborate and expensive for them, you know, 1 or 2 more units isn't going to have any payback for them.
right. And so the
and-
process now is cumbersome because it's a special permit. Is that why?
There's just a lot of requirements to it. You know, if you've got a small development, it's
Right.
these are weighted for larger developments. And if the
Weighted
goal
for-
is,
That's a great, yeah.
you know, it's 2 aspects of it. One part is you're protecting leaving some land undisturbed and developing the same density overall. But then when you tie in that you're trying to get some density, some bonuses by providing affordable housing, and you know, your development costs theoretically could be less if you're concentrating the development. But it's a 2-pronged tool, and maybe it's, you know, maybe in Ashburnham it doesn't have a payback the way it is.
There's a problem that we have where there's all, yeah, you say it's too expensive, but there's also, as was explained by Lorraine at our planning board meeting, there's an ongoing expense to maintaining that conservation restriction and protecting it. And we don't seem to have, you know, a clear idea of what the enforcement's going to be and how we're going to maintain the conservation restriction. I have 2 questions basically for your committee in terms of the bylaw. And that is, number 1, we have the current bylaw and we're in the midst, Bill is leading it, Marshall's on it, it's bylaw review committee. It won't, you know, it'd be one of many meetings we'll have that will cover certain sections of that bylaw, and we're not there yet. But before we get to that bylaw, we need to know from you what you think works and what are your comments about the current bylaw? Where does it fall short of what you want that bylaw to be? And, you know, that would help us if, if you constructed that in writing to us, only because we have lots of things that we're taking notes on and we don't want to forget anything. And that would be my first thing. And the second thing would be, without respect to the current bylaw, what do you think? Where should we be taking this? You know, initially, we're just going to focus on the current bylaw and trying to get out the idiosyncrasies and try to correct it and make, you know, make it work like it's intended to work. But the second part of our project, which is not to happen until we get into next year, will be, where are the places in all of our bylaws where we see that they are failing us, or where we need some more substantive change and investigation. And if this is one of them, then we need to be able to articulate that. So open space, helping us understand from your perspective where we need to be taking this. Those are the two things we need.
Have you seen my comments? I went line by line, basically, item by item. Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So there's both, you know, what should, from the open space committee's point of view, what do we want the open space residential bylaw to do, essentially? What's the ultimate goal of that? But then also, let's look at all of our zoning bylaws, and from an open space perspective, where is it failing open space and the objectives of the town and the open space plan? And where do we want, where from our, like through our lens, where should we be going with it? Is that right?
I'd let Bill and Marshall speak to this, but we'll take comments on any bylaw that it's out there, you know, that you think is not working for your objectives. And
right.
So that we can take that into consideration in terms of, you know,
right.
the bylaw review. That is an 18-month process. This is just started, and it's an 18-month process. So it's not going to be something that happens quickly. But Bill,
that's great.
What do you think?
Chris, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, so this may be more specific than you're getting at some bigger questions, but Anna had pointed out the need to simplify, right, the process. Walt had pointed out the fact that the recent proposal for an OSRD fell through because of the conservation restriction requirements. It was so complicated, right? So one very simple revision, I think, would be to have like a threshold where you don't need a CR. You don't need a conservation restriction for parcels of X acres or less, because we had a development with 5 houses. We could have had, 4 acres of upland forest protected. That's tiny. But because we have all these layers of requirements and complex conservation restrictions, and then who's going to monitor, it fell through. And that's too bad. And so those things make sense if you're going to protect 80 acres, but what can we do to make it easy for somebody to set aside, you know, I'll set aside this 4-acre parcel. It's not the crappy wetlands that I can't develop anyways, right? There are provisions in the bylaw already to prevent developers from just dumping the waste areas, because the wetland percentage is constraining that. But we want to make it so that somebody can donate, you know, a nice little 4-acre parcel instead of making it this complex. It was so complicated with the conservation restrictions and all that. We lost it, and that's a shame. So how can we make it easy?
I guess, I mean, just to be counter to that, Chris, I'm not so sure it was a shame in that particular case. And I'm saying that because I don't know what value that property really had for the town and for anybody else's use of it. And quite frankly, the reason, in my opinion, it fell through is it fell through because the developer, you know, was really hoping to offload some costs and was offload some real estate taxes and things like that.
Yeah.
We gotta kind of, you know, not every property or every project's going to lend itself ideally to, you know, an open space restriction. It was all going to be property that was behind the houses. It was going to be their backyard. And in my judgment, we never got to this conversation because he pulled it off the table before we got to this. But it really wasn't a good idea. It actually wasn't a very good development in my planning, although he's going to do something now, which will mostly be as of right. And we won't have much say of it anyway, and it might not be any better. But I think I'm speaking more to that specific project, but I understand your overall theme there. So we've got to, in my opinion, we need to put something that there has to be some intrinsic value to the town.
Yeah.
And to the development. And if there isn't, we're going to say no. I see Marshall nodding. So
No, I think Walt's entirely correct here. I looked at that 4 acres that, quote, the town was allegedly to receive, and it's like, well, what do we do with it? And do we really want it? And I think in that kind of situation, it became a burden because of not only to us, but to the developer. Who's going to maintain it and who's going to upfront the money for the monitoring. I think in those situations, we just leave it to them. As Lorraine said before, there are problems when you leave it to the homeowners association to maintain stuff. But, for 4 acres,
We lose control of it anyway.
it's just not worth the town's expenditure of time. And you're right. Some of these open space residential developments are so tiny that, you're right. If it's mega acres, that's one thing. But when it's 5 houses on 8 acres, it may not just be worth it.
I think
Anyway,
my comment is, what is the, we list in there that it can be used for certain things of hiking trails or
Right.
whatever, but what do we need to have a use for it, whether it's undisturbed, whether it gets a specific use, or it satisfies some need that's identified in town surveys or something. But how do we match that up with, or who does, when we see that we have a need in the open space plan, what things people want, and how do we match that up with specific locations?
I think that's where we have an opportunity for a real partnership with the open space committee, in terms of, the planning. If we communicate and we really are looking at development opportunities and property and understanding, the zoning and that, you all helping to identify those things, then we can look for that and expect that. But
I'd like to have a ranking system and it's not that we can tell people what to do with their land, but if it comes up and if we are asked to prevail in a certain way, I think we should have an idea up front of whether or not it's even worthy of contemplating it. Is it meeting any of the criteria of our plan? But to sort of pre-assess properties and find the ones that when they come up, we're ready to say yes, or maybe at least, or no, it doesn't meet the criteria.
Well, this is very, to me, what's coming up in my brain right now is the capabilities of the GIS mapping. And I think, do we use MRPC for our mapping for the town? Is that right? GIS work? Yeah. So, maybe, again, since we're looking at renewing the open space plan, that's one of the things on the open space committee's agenda, which looks at reevaluating through the lens of priority habitat, watershed protection, recreation. And then now we're doing the municipal vulnerability preparedness planning. So there will be also other potential green infrastructure priorities identified through that planning process. I feel like this is a great timing to potentially work with MRPC to help us map all of those priorities and see where the dark areas are, if you will. Think your color wheels, you know.
Multiple
And
years.
and that might give us a geospatial idea of, oh, so here's the watershed lands and priority habitat. You know, if someone's looking to put a big development in these areas, it's going to be, you know, a red flag for the planning board to say, oh, hang on a second. That's a area that has a lot of intrinsic value or to the town, you know, for a lot of different reasons.
Mhm.
And we have to proceed with caution, or we have to be very thoughtful about what happens here, or more so. So I'm just wondering if, you know, I love that Walt said that this is the beginning of an 18-month process. So immediately I say, okay, so timeline wise, how does this line up with, you know, the decision points, or what's the next critical juncture for the planning board in their process in the zoning? You know, are you taking it bylaw by bylaw, or, you know, and when is this going to come up in your agenda, or, you know, and should we, you know, have a rep come to the meeting, or I don't know, how does that process work collaboratively?
Well, we have to have our plan done by November, so
Right.
part of that needs to be completed. We don't have 18 months to come up with this overlay. We're gonna have to come up with it much sooner, which will be
No.
beneficial to the review committee.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So we'll have
Component.
hopefully we'll have our stuff together that can make up that initial layer. But I don't know.
We're in the process now, and again, I defer to Bill, but we're trying to organize how we're going to attack the bylaws. That's actually on our agenda for the next meeting, if I recall correctly.
Great.
And it's, you know, but the first thing is we're just trying to compile everything. That's been our biggest problem. Things are all over the place, compiling it. We've got addendums that haven't been attached. It's just, there's no one person in the town,
It owns everything.
in the town hall who really owns it and does. And so we're taking ownership of it, but I shouldn't be talking. Bill should be talking. What do you think, Bill?
No, I'm gonna ask Bill. You know, we talked at our last meeting about, you know, what the bylaw review committee is, what its responsibilities are, and what we're supposed to do. And I believe the bottom line response was for us to identify problem areas, issues that need to be resolved within at least those bylaws that we foresee are in need of revision. But my question is then, once we identify all that, who actually writes the bylaws?
Well, Marshall, if you're looking for an answer for me, I can't give you one, because I mean, as I've said before, I have my thoughts on things, but
Right.
You know, if you're asking me to rewrite the bylaw,
No.
you know, it's going to be problematic, because, you know, that's not any area of expertise that I have. But my own personal thoughts are that I think if it's, let's say it's an open space that we're dealing with here, then we would have to work in collaboration with the committees that are tasked with that responsibility to do that.
Okay.
I look at it as, we're going to identify it.
Yep.
And as a sideline, I'll tell you, I spent 2 hours with the new building commissioner today,
Mhm.
who has a lot of thoughts about this and is eagerly awaiting to work with us.
Good.
So one thing that I think I've decided is that when we jump into the deep end of the pool, which is going to be pretty quickly, we're going to start with zoning bylaws versus general bylaws.
Okay.
But there's just so much detail involved with this. I also learned today that we can't change a comma, a period, or a word without it going before legal and going before town meeting. So
Right.
I thought that we were going to be able to not have to worry about that, but now we're going to have to worry about it. So I'm taking too long here, but I don't have a definitive answer as to who's going to do that. In some cases, it'll be, with the zoning commissioner, or, and anybody else that wants to get involved with it. As you all know, it can take a year, 2 years to do a bylaw by the time you do all the hearings and things like that. So to suggest that we're gonna, bang out 10 new bylaws or correct 10 bylaws in the next 18 months is just not realistic expectation.
I mean,
right.
I would hope after our comments, we're going to find that most of the bylaws are in pretty good shape, and I'm sure there's going to be some low hanging fruit we'll identify, which is sort of easy clauses that, are conflicting, and, we'll have good, clear rationale as to why they need to be removed or changed or adopted, a bylaw written in another town that would better serve us. But then there'll be the more complex ones, which will be more strategic. And they will require probably acquiring some outside expertise in rewriting of those bylaws. I'm just thinking out loud, but that's my prediction is to, we'll organize, identify, go after the low hanging fruit, and then, other parts of it may take another 2 years to rewrite because we think we need to adopt something much more substantial.
Well, let
Okay.
me throw another curveball in there too. I also learned today that because Anna was talking about GIS mapping and things like that. Our maps are a mess, to put it bluntly. Sarah's
you're kidding.
husband works in the assessor's office, for our contractor, who handles 32 other cities and towns around us, and we're at the bottom of the list. And things just don't line up like they're supposed to. And to go through that process and clean that up so that we can, have different layers on the GIS and things like that, you're looking at another $100,000 to get that squared away.
We had an MVP meeting this afternoon with Park Corporation and the core team members. And, I was asking Randy at DPW to confirm that in fact we had no GIS related information about utilities, where are the water lines, where are the sewer lines, where are the pump stations, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, we don't, but we got maps, we got paper. And it's like, well, we can't give that information to Park Corporation to assist in this overall discussion about what's vulnerable, what's not vulnerable, because we don't have anything that tells us where they really are, except for some paper maps, God knows where in the DPW building.
And so specifically on that, I was conversing with Randy in the last week. We can do a DLTA grant application due March 2nd. We're looking for topics, and that is specifically one that other towns have had done. We could have them do. Now, we get 8 hours a year of mapping as part of our annual dues. Whether we use it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But obviously that's going to take, maybe, I don't know. I had Jason contact them a couple of years ago about this and just trying to figure out if what's the scope of it? And is it something that we should apply for as a DLT project? And if we want to do that and we don't have any other topics and that needs to get done, we can get it done without a cost. I don't know what the time frame is. If it's something that we need for the MVP, then got to pay for it.
It just would have facilitated the discussion.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I looked online and, where the water lines go, no one, well,
No one knows.
no one, the public is not able to see. Yes, there exists some plans at DPW and, Steve and Randy and whomever can
Marshall,
figure all that out, but.
the planning board doesn't know.
I think
Well,
that's the problem. That's
And
a
neither does the
problem.
Conservation Commission.
How are you guys supposed to make decisions
It's-
about, the future development if you don't have the current plan or the
Well,
what
The-
exists?
It's, our bylaw is 20 years old. It predates the sewer system. It has not been changed to reflect we have a sewer system.
I found a plan in the 1985 master plan that had, not distributed, but it had service areas for sewer and water. But I mean, hey, that was 35 years ago. Who knows what it is now?
Bill, are there other DLTA ideas?
We have not, we actually have a meeting Thursday. I think we're going to talk about some of that, but I don't think we've specifically identified, anything that we're pointing towards. There's been so much going on in the last few months that every time you head down one of those rabbit holes, 3 other things pop up. And like today, I went into this meeting, really optimistic, and I came out and it's like, oh crap, because it was worse than when I went in. So there's a lot of that going on. Now, the good news is there's a lot of good things going on with some of the grants that we've gotten that outside people are looking at and providing assistance to us that aren't costing us any money. So it's a good time. There's a lot of upside to what we're doing, but there's a tremendous amount of man hours, volunteer man hours putting into these things, and it's just not going to happen as quick. But I used the comparison today with Sarah. We've gone through some recent financial struggles in the town, again, not knowing certain things. And now we're in a position where we've cleared that deck and we have a line in the sand that says, okay, from here going forward, we know exactly where we are. And that's the same analogy I'm trying to apply to what we're doing now, whether it be the mapping or whatever it is. Sarah said to me today, she said, I had a resident call me asking me questions about a sign bylaw. And I went into the book and started talking about it. And then I found out that there's a new bylaw zoning or a sign bylaw that she didn't know where it was and had to ask multiple people that finally were able to tell her it was hidden on the website someplace. So how many of those are out there?
Right.
So everything takes longer right now.
Yeah. No, I get it because I've lived it in many different scenarios. So, and the new building commissioner is Sarah Colgan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Marshall, who wrote the wetlands bylaw?
The wetlands bylaw, dare I say, and is in good shape because we revised it extensively in the last 2 years ago.
Who wrote it initially?
And we had a public hearing on it. Everything passed. So I don't think the bylaw itself or the regulations at this point need to be adjusted.
My question is, who is the author? Who wrote the bylaw?
Me. Oh, the bylaw was written by Lori, you and Gary, I guess. I don't know who else. It was before my time. But when I came on board and, after many years of applying the regulations anyway, I thought they needed to be, brought up to date. And I did the revisions to the bylaw and, they've been being implemented for the last 2 years.
Okay, so getting back to the issue of working with the planning board to assist them. Roger, do you want to have a work session? Do you want to ask certain questions? I mean, how do you think it would work best for us to give you substantive input?
Before you do that, I'm going to have to beg off at this point. Lorraine, I gave you the town of Norwell's since Bill and I have, and Walt had been looking at other towns. I gave you a copy of the Norwell Open Space and Residential Design Bylaw. I would encourage everybody to take a look at that. It limits those kind of applications to 5 acres. It's got to be at least 5 acres. But there are other components of it that I think are really good, which could improve our existing bylaw. So take a look at that. And then my other question, I'll put Anna on the spot. Are you available Thursday morning for the MVP?
I sent you an email. I have a training
Okay,
on Thursday morning.
okay. Be that way.
But the other, I know, I'm sorry. The other session is on my calendar and I can totally make the second session.
Okay, for the
And
second,
yeah,
for the following Wednesday? Okay,
that's on my calendar and it's blocked off. And I also did the survey, so.
thank you, thank you. All right, folks, thanks very much.
Okay.
I'm out.
So, okay.
Thank you,
Take care.
Marshall.
Yeah,
Right.
night.
Did I forward that document he just referred to? I think I got it back out to everybody.
Yes, you did.
Roger did. If you didn't get it, let me know.
I can check here. I was just, Bill, did I miss something this morning? Or are we on for Thursday?
Thursday for what?
MVP.
I don't know. I don't do MVP. I gave
Oh,
it up for Lent.
Roger,
Easter's coming.
there is, yeah, Roger, there is an MVP session on Thursday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, in fact, I got the date wrong when they were talking about something today, so.
Too many meetings.
So, Maureen, what document are you talking about?
Yeah.
CR manual?
Let
Yeah,
me
I don't see that in my mail either, Lauren.
All right.
This is conservation restriction stewardship manual?
Nope, that's not it.
Okay. I was reading.
Let's see if I can find it. If not, I'll make sure that it gets sent out on a different computer, so I'm not seeing the same mailbox.
There was a excellent session I attended this morning on headwaters and such. And if I can, it was excellent overview, very informational, but general enough that you weren't overloaded with details. But it was very informative, and I think for anybody that's on a board or anything to watch this one, I'll send it out when it gets loaded. But it was excellent. It was put on by Sarah, somebody from Shirley. And I think
Yes.
she's on one of the boards there too, but it was
And
just
you're
an
aware that-
excellent presentation.
You're aware that we are the headwaters for 3 major watersheds.
Yeah.
So we have quite a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But at least for even planning board members, just to see this, to understand what's really out there that you wouldn't necessarily.
See, that's why you
No.
can't leave, Roger. You know that now.
I'm sharing the link.
We already knew that.
Passing it on.
Hey,
Planning board
Stan.
knew that.
I'm passing on the link. So you said some comments, we talked about some things. I guess as far as where it goes, perhaps Walt and Bill, does this go through the address to the bylaw review committee?
Comments?
Yeah,
Yeah, at the end of the day, as Walt said earlier, we're looking for any tidbit of information we can get from anybody that either celebrates the fact that the bylaw is in good shape, like Marshall was talking about with wetlands, or there are problems that need to be addressed. So again, we are literally still sorting through the process, but I think it's going to look something like, because we're not going to spend hours on Thursday nights on Zoom meetings reading to one another.
Mhm.
We're going to take, like, let's look at the first 3 zoning bylaws, go through and review them, and then come back to the next meeting with your comments or problems or whatever. And then, because Sarah's got a conflict with Thursday nights, most Thursdays, we're going to get her to review them and look at it. And then, you know, if there's a lot of things that need to be done, we say, okay, you know, we can't touch number 3. We set it aside. And once we make it through, then we have to circle back and decide, you know, how do we prioritize the ones we've identified there's problems with, and how do we proceed with those? So I think that's roughly how it's going to work. So we're soliciting comments from anybody that is involved with these. I don't think I've sent anything to open space yet, but encouraging them to look at the bylaws that they may be involved with, or in some cases responsible for, and let us know what their thoughts are if they need to, if there are changes that need to be made to those bylaws.
Mhm. I'd say the first one is the LID bylaw. That's a town bylaw that then interacts with the planning board, but then it goes back to who for enforcement and such. That's one to straighten out.
Yeah, so you know, you need to send me an email and tell me
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
you know, and or the, you know, or from the planning board, whomever, just
Yeah.
say, look here, and it may not have to be any more complicated than that, that this particular bylaw we've identified as a problem. Here's what we believe the problem is. Thank you very much. And we take it and we put it in the queue, and
Mhm.
you know, we'll start lining them up and work our way through them.
I've started a Word file of pasting in things that as I discover them. So that can be a live document that I'll just keep adding things to and send it to you when you want it.
Okay.
You know, rather than one at a time.
Yeah, no,
Um,
yeah, anything that more than one would be good.
Mhm. I mean, now that we have a preliminary subdivision application in, I, reread through that one and highlighted all the discrepancies or whatever that, it references sections in our bylaws that we deleted in 2012 or 2005. Okay, well, all right, we deleted large scale development. Well, okay, do we replace it with OSRD or whatever it is, or it references a certain task by the town planner. Well, who does that? But referencing a
New
section
town
that was
planner, Roger, the new town planner.
Yay, yes.
referencing a section that was deleted, years ago, and that things like that didn't get updated in other related documents.
If I
That's what
recall
we're doing with the
correctly,
water one.
Eric Smith was probably involved in the first OSRD.
Mhm. Yeah. And he left a few things that he was working on to be finished, but that's, nothing began after that.
Right.
Is there to be a new town planner, or did I miss something?
No, it's still a hope.
Okay.
It's a goal of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to say, just as maybe an aside, but when I worked for the town of Lincoln, for their conservation department, there was I don't know if it was quarterly, but it was all the land departments met together, like the heads of the land departments, planning board, zoning, conservation. And it could be just the chairs of the board too, but it was like a land use group, and the local land trust was on that too. And they just talked about land use stuff that needed to happen quarterly. And it seemed like a really good time for specific information to be exchanged about things that were happening. So just to put that out there into the universe, I don't know if it's appropriate for Ashburnham. Obviously, right now, everybody's kind of getting their ducks in order and figuring things out, but maybe in the future, it could be something where, occasionally the land use groups just get together and say, this is what's priority, this is what's on our agenda, this is a concern of ours or whatever, and exchange information that way. Just put it out there.
I think it's a good idea. Okay, so I guess what we'll do is our members will look through, what I'll do is we'll discuss it at our meeting. the changes. I haven't heard from some of the members, and I would like them to, in one document, maybe if we all comment, with the official comment feature, and give Roger that document to review, and then he can pass it to Bill.
And-
Like, well, one thing just off the top of my head was, there's a stipulation about solar energy, solar panels, which seems a little bit over the top, although it's a great idea. It seemed a little bit onerous to me. So you were talking about simplifying the bylaw. That's something I think that could come out. Because if they're required to do that, as our bylaw suggests, or I don't know if it's a heavy suggestion or a requirement, but that's a cost too to them, that if they weren't planning on doing that, all of a sudden that there's that element of more materials and labor involved in the
Or
development.
is it more, solar orientation, how you orient the
Maybe.
structures, which isn't necessarily as critical now with the technology for solar, that it doesn't need to face exactly south. It still can generate quite a bit if it's at a slightly different angle. But anyway, that's
So if I could add to what Lorraine was saying, like maybe what makes sense for the open space committee to do is come up with like an executive summary sheet, like not just a bunch of comments on the side, and make the planning board sort of weed through, because it doesn't rank them that way, but actually we could come up with a short list of these are the priorities in addition to all the comments. Because people's time is pretty precious.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this last one that we had as an applicant, he mentioned it, whatever, beginning of the year, before we were still doing live meetings. And then we didn't hear from him for 6-8 months, and all of a sudden this thing comes before us. We got to encourage some interaction so that we're not, we got 90 days to figure out what's this open space going to be used for? Does it work for us? If we had encouraged them to bring it up beforehand so that we can get to folks, it's giving them some direction or some ideas.
And I think they just.
And that's why I immediately sent it out to you, because, I'm like, there's opportunities here, but, or is there any use for it?
And I think they just skimmed the document. They didn't really read it and see exactly what was required of them. They just saw an opportunity and they saw what they wanted to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Chris Mossman was around when we did some of those other ones, so I'm sure he remembers them. That other people had done that, and probably, maybe, I don't know if he suggested it or not, but I doubt that the developer, I don't know, maybe the developer knew or not about these types of developments, but they certainly didn't pay attention to the details. Very good. Well,
Yes.
is there anything else that the planning board wants to say or ask?
I don't. Anybody else?
Thank you in advance for your input. I think there's some opportunities here to make it better. And I think what Chris recommended or suggested would be very helpful to us, because it's not, we can read the bylaw ourselves, and but we know what you're trying to accomplish or what you hope it will accomplish. We can evaluate then where the bylaw is falling short and where it might at some future date be improved to serve those purposes, assuming others in the town agree with it.
Does the town have a Google Drive where all of these things reside? As we start building them, so that we can refer and check on the progress of each group's work?
Would that be like OneDrive?
Yeah,
Or Dropbox.
Yeah, we have OneDrive, but that's kind of in the same situation as our bylaws. It's a mess. So maybe it's an opportunity there, but there is a lot of stuff in there and it's not organized well and it's,
Who manages it?
I think the administrative assistant manages it.
So, Lorraine, OneDrive is an Office 365.
And Mary's used it to provide documents.
Yeah, but Harvey says it's very restricted on.
I'm having a hard time hearing if someone's got something on
Yeah, what game are we listening to?
TV or something.
In the background.
Multitasking, someone?
Multitasking with multiple meetings and trying to spread out in the house.
Yeah.
We don't interfere with each other.
Well, at least you're in the country now, not in New York City or wherever you are, so.
Yeah, so
I like that scenery better. There's no snow.
Oh,
So the, you know, I think probably from Bill's response, we should maybe do a Google Docs or something. Because is that allowed through the town, like if we're working on town stuff, or do we have to have it, you know?
I don't know. Let me find out because that's another area that I'm not have any expertise on. So
Okay.
let me see what our options are there.
Yeah, for collaborative editing.
sharing it. Yeah, just, I mean, if we have something we want everyone to have, instead of attaching it to an email and it getting lost in a long thread of email chain, if we just all had a place that we can go and find as many of these pertinent documents as possible.
Right, and that's the theory behind the OneDrive, and there's a lot of stuff in there. That's where we're supposed to go to get our selectmen packets and things like that. But for me, and I know at least one other member of the board, it's become like, where's Waldo? You can't
Yeah, I
find anything in
struggle
there.
with that. I do struggle with it.
Okay. Well, let us know if there's anything else, Bill or planning board, or we're volunteers trying to make it the best town that it can be as well. So appreciate your service, all of you.
You too. Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
You all have a good night.
All right, so
Thank
the
you.
planning board will,
Good night.
the planning board will fade away here. We'll adjourn our meeting. I'll do it by roll call vote at 7:03. Roger Hoyt, yes. Walt Meisner,
Yes.
Richard Wright.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks,
night, guys.
guys.
Thank you.
thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Can someone take over recording? How
Oh,
do
it
we do
is?
that?
Yeah,
It is-
throw it over
it's
to.
recording.
Who is recording?
Mary started the process,
Okay,
so I'm assuming it's going to keep going as long as there are members and people in here.
yes, but how do we share that if, I don't know who, I have the
Right.
button, I think.
If you leave,
I
does it
can
say,
stop
can you assign to
recording.
something else?
I have a stop recording button.
Oh,
But does that end the meeting? You have a stop recording?
I do. And I have an end,
Oh, then you have control. Thank
I
you.
believe I do, yes.
Okay,
Find out. Thank
and
you.
Richard, see you tomorrow night.
Got it.
Good night, Rich.
You're double
Night.
duty, Richard.
Thanks,
You got
guys.
Economic development
thank
also,
you.
right?
We're trapped in Zoom land. All right. So, what I thought we would do with the rest of the night is try to look, well, not try to look at the table of contents of the open space and recreation plan and assign or assume responsibilities for beginning their review. So I'm going to share my screen. So you'll see my first run through of how we can start to tackle the document. Now let me figure out how to share screen.
I just would like to say I cannot get to the drive. I don't know how to do it.
Okay,
This has been my ongoing problem between work. Work has started with this brand new system to do our program. They also started with Teams. They started with GoToMeeting. They started with Zoom. And I'm sitting here at home going, I don't know how to do any of this.
Oh, see, I'll come over and help you.
Sending messages to my boss who never gets back to me.
Ugh.
So I'm at the point where I'm gonna like leave work.
Oh, no.
Leave work?
Yep, I'm gonna quit.
Uh-huh.
But I can't, I don't know how to get to anything. I really don't. I'm,
Okay.
you know,
So the best thing to do is just send it to you directly.
Oh. And her computer's frozen. See,
And that what a pose.
no, I'm not.
you're good.
I'm
Okay,
not
you're back.
frozen.
You were frozen like this for about 35 seconds.
It was perfect, Cease. It was like, it was
I
like
can't do anything.
perfect.
Yeah, she stopped.
I have had the year from hell and it's not getting any better.
It's been rough.
Hugs to you.
All right.
How can we make it easier for you?
I think if Lorraine could just send it over, or are we just
Yeah.
gonna use, is it just the little book, that book that we have?
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
not a
book,
little
right?
book.
Yeah, the thick book.
I can use the little book,
All right.
which is what I did before when we did this.
Okay.
All right.
We'll send, and maybe we can send Cease her section in Word, like send it to her somehow.
Yeah, I think it exists in Word.
Yeah,
It does exist in Word.
cool. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Sure.
I've
Always
had-
willing to help, Cease.
I've had an awful day trying to learn how to do Teams.
Teas?
Teams.
So
Teams.
Office 365 is like, it trips over itself. Some of the apps are redundant and then they discontinue other apps. Once you start getting used to something and they discontinue it and you've got to learn a new program. And some of them work well together and others don't work well together. Microsoft Office is a nightmare.
Well, you know, it started with my boss sent this little email that if you didn't have Teams on your desktop, to let IT know so that they could put it on. So that was yesterday at 10 minutes to 5. So I'm sending off a message to IT because I had to have it on by 5 o'clock. So I could send a message back saying, okay, I have it. And then, so I could see IT working on my laptop. Okay, fine, I've got it. And then she sends a message saying, you have to look at this video. I spent all morning and half the afternoon trying to get the video to open so I could learn about Teams. Finally sent a message to I sent a message early in the morning to her. And then I sent a message to one of the younger people that I work with who sent me the link. So all I had to do was click on the link and then I could see the video. And I was like, forget it. Then I get, you've got to fill out a query form because it's time for you to be queried. They send it in a PDF and I'm like, I don't know how to open this to do it, to like be able to write on it so I can get it back to you. Oh, and take a picture of your license and send it to us. Okay, I don't have a smartphone, so like, I'll go get my camera and I'll have to put it in this laptop to send it to work so that I can send it to her.
What is that? There's a commercial right now. I forget, I don't know what it's for, but it's some guy trying to lead a group of people. And he said, okay, so now today we're going to open a PDF.
Yep.
And everyone groans and backs away. What is that? Insurance commercial or whatever?
Insurance commercial. Yeah. Anyhow, so thanks for listening, guys. That's my life.
I love you, Cease.
Absolutely.
73 and I've had it.
All righty. Okay.
All right, going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have these 11 sections. It's 11 or 12, and then a bunch of appendices. And my first question is, do we want to assume the responsibility for sections, or do you want to team up on a section? You know, so for instance, Section 8, which is goals and objectives. I was wondering if it wouldn't be better if Gary and C's work together versus one person assuming the responsibility for a section. And I put Marshall and Chris on environmental analysis and inventory.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Some of them are really short, like the introduction, it's the introduction. It's not.
Probably needs nothing.
So the community setting, I thought I could take that on. It's just, a little history research and, but the ones that are technical, I thought it's just too much for one person to take on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I sent you this page or not, but I just want to get your feedback. So I would do community setting. Marshall and Chris would do environmental inventory. Janet could do inventory of conservation and recreation interest. Community vision, I have Anna Wilkins. Analysis of need, Gary and C's. This is too small.
Section 7.
7-year action plan. I threw C's in there, but I was just running out of ideas. Again, that could be a team thing. If it would probably working with goals and objectives, and the 7-year action plan could probably be grouped in with that. So again, maybe C's and Gary. Public comments. We're going to have to do another survey, so I would take that on. And then there's the maps. I don't know really what to do about those.
I'll take the maps.
You take the maps?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. There's some really great, the other thing that I was thinking this weekend is that, I haven't looked at the website for I haven't talked to Melissa, but I think that we should incorporate climate resiliency or something on climate change. At least in the maps.
The maps.
And I was thinking the section Marshall and I have, it seems he's already leading the MVP thing, so we can just kind of take nuggets from there that are relevant, kind of stick them in there, and then maybe throw some of the maps in the map section. But it seems like we can just take some of the relevant parts of the MVP and save ourselves some.
Yeah, if PAR, is it PAR or Park?
Yeah, PAR.
PRE, I think.
PAR.
PAR.
That's right, pair or.
It looks like fair, but it's part.
If PAR has good maps, I don't know what they're gonna show.
They should.
Some of it will show, some of it will be relevant for open space and some of it's really not gonna be.
Well, they share it with us though.
Oh, I don't know. That's true. Well, it's town property. So it would be really if the MVP committee shares it with us or not.
Yeah.
Given that Marshall's on that, I think we.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine
Well, that's true.
PAR would have any say in whether or not we use the maps.
Given that we would probably add a few things like climate, would people agree that there may be some sections that can be dramatically reduced? My impression of the last edition was it seemed to take things from the previous edition and add in more. So every year things kind of get added on, and you reach a point where this thing is hundreds of pages when a lot of those pages just aren't. No one's going to read those pages. That's what worries me.
We do have one of the thickest plans.
Yeah, so maybe we can all try to condense where possible. Get to the point.
Right, and I've looked at a lot of open space plans, and the parts that are really the most useful are talking about the citizen input, right? So what the town wants and what the town is, in the current state of the town at that time, right? And then what's both the input from the people and the, you know, the boards, but then the maps and how all of those things overlay, or, you know, you go, and then of course, you know, it's basically all the appendices that are like
Yeah.
what you go to for the information, the data. So I feel like that's where we should really put our, you know, some of our time and
In the
effort
section, yeah.
into.
Yeah.
And I have a really great volunteer who was the GIS coordinator for the city of Gardner, and she is amazing. And I'm hoping she'll actually join my team as an employee, but pending funding. But anyway, so she's like twiddling her thumbs, like I want things to do, I want projects. So if you guys are okay, like she
Yeah.
would make quick work of a lot of these maps, and she's very she's been doing this professionally for years. So
Oh, yeah, well,
that'd
make it so.
be great. The only other question, Lorraine, I had, have you had a conversation with Janet? Is she okay to do that section since she's not?
I have
officially
not.
on the-
I had thought she would be here tonight, but she isn't, so I will get back to her on.
Happy to do that section if she's like, I'm like totally flat out or whatever, because I know
She's
she's,
got a new project, so.
yeah, she's doing the Forest Legacy, and I know that's, you know, kind of, they're meeting weekly, that
And
Forest
can you,
Legacy project.
Lorraine, can you go back up and look at the section that Janet was going to have and Anna was going to have? Because at the time I was thinking maybe they could be merged because they seem to have some overlap, but I forget what they're called now.
They
Yeah.
are,
So an inventory of lands that are
Inventories.
of conservation recreation interest and community vision. It seems to me those seem to kind of overlap, don't they? What's your goal? Well, your goal is to protect the areas that are the most interesting, right?
Yeah, and it will, and I would almost put
Yeah.
community vision before
Yeah,
inventory.
those do seem to
Yeah,
a
switch
couple
them.
fit together.
Yeah, switch
yeah, the
them.
inventory is more like down, should be down here somewhere.
Yeah,
Well, do they
Yeah,
actually
'cause-
require this format though? So we need to find out whether this is a requirement.
Right, yeah, good point, Gary. I can't remember.
Appendix
If it's-
C is
think
where
it's-
all these are listed, so.
I don't know how strict it is, because I'm trying to, they all look, you know, very similar, but they're all very different.
Um,
And-
okay, so time frame. We should have something to bring to the table next month. And even if it's just a matter of having read that section
Yeah.
and underline things and highlight things that need to be addressed.
Right,
There should be some amount of progress. And Cease, where do you see, what would you like to do?
well, I can do the one you said with Gary.
Okay. Yeah, there was like 8,
8, 7,
9,
and 9.
8, 7, 9. Okay. good.
7, 8, 9. Get it?
Yeah, I got it.
7,
I-
8, 9.
She can still count. She's got-
no,
Oh, you
it's
didn't
a
get it.
joke.
7,
Why,
8,
why
9.
was 6 afraid of the 7? Because 7,
7,
8,
8,
9.
9.
I am a second grader. I know these things.
Okay, then I'm going to assume that when we come back for the next meeting that we'll at least read our sections and
So please send us this document with
Yes.
your notes, please. And who's
will.
committed to what?
I will. I'll do a little chart, a little table, make it simple. Because if the comments feature is not easy to find, you know, these little balloon things in your software, then I'll just make it easier to absorb. Good. All right. then I wanted to give a little bit of unless anyone has any other comments or questions about the next steps with the plan.
So,
I didn't give Marshall much to do that I didn't think he was already, like Chris
yeah,
said,
he's already
he's already in the
overloaded.
process of getting this information so
Right.
he can, he can port it over to this document. And that's the other thing is I'm gonna stop sharing this. The Riverfront project on River Street has really become a very interesting challenge. I've been in a discovery mode with it. I went through the NOI. I came to some areas where, I need to measure, areas and come up with some numbers that it's kind of hard to get out there now. I'm going to try to do it through GIS, but the more I worked on it and the more I've thought about this, the larger it has become in my mind. And I've talked to some interesting people that are very excited about the project. And one of them,
And some not so excited.
we're fine, I talked to her today. Yeah, we've had some rather spirited conversations, and on both sides, both negative and positive. On the positive side, the house, Laura and Mike's house on the corner, the bed and breakfast, used to belong to J.R. Briggs and his wife and his family, and he raised their children in that area. And we're responsible for the whole pool. I've gotten some great photos from Janice Packard-Roy that really made me, I always knew this, but I just didn't feel it like I do now. It was a really vital area. It was a central meeting. It was a crucial component of community.
Yep.
It was a pool. And while, the destruction of the riparian zone kind of rasps at me a little bit, I look at the kids and I've heard about J.R. Briggs and all that he had to do with the community and his support with children. And I felt this need to have a pool back. Now, I'm not saying that's the direction we should go in or can go in, but I've really come to understand it. A guy named Kim Nelson is the grandson of J.R. Briggs, and he's full of stories about the house and about the pool and about his grandfather, and he's a landscaper. He now lives in New York, but is willing to come out and do work sessions with us. So he'll bring us equipment, he'll chip, he'll do whatever. He would really like to see it, of course, revived. I told him, and I never told anyone it'd be a swimming hole. I said, that's not going to happen again, but we just want to clean it up and beautify it. Lots of enthusiasm. Tim Slocum is also excited about working the project, plus the original Perna, which Perna I can't remember, but
Chuck.
we've got 3 people with equipment just ready to go. Just anytime we let them in there, they're ready to go.
Who's Slocum?
Tim Slocum, yep.
Tim.
He's,
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
Steve Slocum, his wife used to own Creative Connections.
Okay.
They had a church. I forget what the church's name was when they were in Creative Connections, but they moved. Did they become Sanctuary as well?
Yeah.
But they live over on Lower Knot Cave.
Okay.
And his
Town East.
children, one's a roofer, one's a landscaper, and so the son, landscapers, raring to go, wants to do something. Janice Packard-Roy thinks it's a wonderful idea, and she's been feeding me all kinds of great photos and bios. And so I'm thinking that I really need to think about this, because I think there's enough historical importance to the site, ecological importance to the site, that we could really go for some serious grant money. If we have everything, as you know, a good grant has lots of information, good background, good thought process. They need to know that you've got a plan that could work.
Right.
So,
And you have the people who can pull it off.
and you've got the people who can pull it off. So you've got the community support. And you've worked out all the details. So I'm trying to, before I sit down and get into the weeds with it, trying to figure out how, I've just been absorbing. I keep running into people who have more to tell me about it.
Amazing.
So I did speak with the Kirkpatricks, and I picked the wrong day to approach them, and it did not go over well initially.
Okay, so who are the Kirkpatrick?
They own the bed and breakfast,
Okay, right.
but we're fine now. It just, they were very kind of freaked out about it. They didn't like the idea at all. That was their initial reaction, but they've come around and now are offering to help. So
Came off as NIMBYs. Real
Well,
bad.
it was not a,
It's
No.
how it came off.
well, it was not a good first encounter, but it's healed. It's fine there. I mean, they don't want a lot of people running by there because it's their front view. They look out their kitchen window and they see that upper pond.
Right.
And I would feel a little threatened too.
Yeah. However, well, yes.
However,
It's true. I totally agree. It's, everyone else is NIMBYs until somebody's trying to change your backyard and then it changes the view. Absolutely.
but I think I just hit them on the wrong time. It was at the town meeting last night. It was miserable and dark and it was just not a good day. And they've since come back and said, look, let's talk. And they realized that to be part of the process will mean they'll have some control over it.
Right.
Because I was talking about putting a trail up. I'm trying to figure out where their property line is.
Right.
And is there enough room to put a trail around the pond? I didn't realize there's actually a pretty good way to get over to the other side. We could have a trail on the other side, keep it away from people, but then there's people on the other side I'm going to have to talk to.
Right.
So I can just do it one at a time. If I do a mass mailing to each of them, there'll be a mob scene. They're just all, so maybe going one at a time.
And just talk to them about what, yep, absolutely. So that's really interesting. And it seems like maybe the general, the memories that have come from that Bresnahan pool as a center, a gathering center and a place of,
Camaraderie and community.
Come around and meet. I guess the question for the larger question is will just a green space do the same thing, right?
I don't think it'll ever be as glorious as that looks in photos.
No.
But
So.
and I even entertain. I've been entertaining all ideas. Like, well, why can't we have a pool? I know that the
Beavers.
if there was a building there, we could replace the building. Because the wetlands regulations allow, if the disturbance has already occurred and the footprint is there and the building is there and you're in the riparian zone, you can just rebuild in that same location. I don't know if this is concrete enough. The buildings are now gone. The foundations are gone.
Yeah.
Is it, but I thought, well, I'll ask. And I don't even know if I want to go that route, but
No, I would
I'm
just,
curious.
I was thinking about the open space and recreation plan, right?
Yeah.
What we find out from the needs of the community, right? So is a central, obviously year after year, it's like, we need a place where you don't have to be an association member to go cool off. And it's safe for kids. And, there's not a bottleneck of parking like at the point.
Right.
Which became very popular this summer during
Yes, it
COVID.
did.
Which is great. But you know, that's such a like a little space.
Yeah,
You know,
You
it's
don't wanna
not
see people down.
meant for, you know, a townwide center.
Yep.
And this is
So,
something
you
that
know-
people can walk to if they're
Right.
downtown.
So, right. So there's like the downtown space, there's the Winchester Park revitalization kind of, you know, rethinking of that space that's sort of happening. But is there, you know, I'm like trying to think if there's a, you know, if we could tie it with the results we get from the open space plan, it might, you know.
Somehow
Not-
build it into the survey to,
somehow-
without naming it, to actually
Oh, yeah,
point
you
it
know what they're
that.
gonna say. They're gonna say they want a place to swim. And Laura even recommended after the initial, you know, we're moving. If you do that, we're moving to, well, maybe we should that's a good place to put a pool.
Now,
Don't
are you
jam it up,
talking like
put
a,
a pool.
like a pool like DCR puts in the pool like down in
Yep.
Pittsburgh where it used to
Like
be?
a cement pond, you know, like a
Cement
concrete pool.
Okay, okay,
Instead of damming it, we put a pool in.
uh-huh,
And I don't know where the
Yeah,
money for that would come, but
right.
No, I was just,
Chris,
yeah,
When you go to the White Mountains, they have these little just picnic areas and the streams flow through there and they're not formal, but they're areas where you can just kind of slide in between the rocks and cool off.
Yeah.
I mean, they have nice little dips where you can at least get
Right.
in up to your chest. We wouldn't have that, but what if it was a rocky bottomed natural stream with some nice picnic tables? You pull off, your kids can get in the water. You're not going to swim, but you cool off. Is that a model?
Then
that
you have
works?
the beaver problem upriver.
Well, don't drink the water. You know, we just put a sign that, you know, in other words, it's not a town sanctioned swimming hole.
Right.
It's just a stream. It's a picnic area. And
Yeah.
if people start dipping their bodies in it, I mean, I am curious how do you get giardia just from that casual contact? You actually have to drink the water.
think you
but
have
when
to
you splash, you
ingest it.
get it in. You get
So-
it in your mouth.
So if I'd say, I don't know. About like just swimming in beaver water. Is that really a high risk? I don't know.
I
But-
think is that why they shut it down? I don't know.
That's, well, when they started doing the Bresnahan Center over there, one of the kids was crawling around and he got giardia and that's why they shut it down and moved down the road.
Well,
But you're talking about little kids who get water in their mouth all the time and then they're
Yep.
gonna be sick,
Because we have beavers all over town.
right?
People swimming, so it just seems, it makes me think maybe the risk of swimming, especially a shallow stream, is pretty low. And that could be a beautiful picnic area, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
there, what's going on with that house on Maple Street and the, you know, it looks like an old,
Victorian house?
The Red House?
yeah, a
Brick house?
Victorian brick house and the like parking lot across the way. That would be a
They're
nice
just sitting
area.
on it.
Oh,
Tacony.
where you go out to eat, the Victorian House?
Yeah.
yeah,
She's
you don't
gonna
wanna go-
reopen it
Oh, really?
any day now.
Uh,
That's the story.
Good
Yeah, I
luck
was
to
just thinking,
Just
I
a
was just
reminder,
thinking-
this meeting is being recorded, just a reminder.
yes,
No, I'm
There
just
you go.
saying that the story is that she wants to reopen it as the Victorian House.
that would be great if she could. I was just thinking of other places
Yeah, it would be,
downtown
wouldn't
that could be, you know, a simple whatever, but well, that's way down the road. But I guess I would caution, yeah, let's just take it very simply, step by step. I don't think there's any way that you could legally permit a pool that close to a perennial stream. But
Well,
How
I
did
don't-
DCR do it down in Pittsburgh at, what the heck's the name of the place? Right near, near the Civic Center. That used to be a, just a stream running through and they put the pool there.
I mean, it happens.
Oh,
People do it. There's they did a Willowbrook State Park. They dam it up once a year. Well, it's dammed up. They just,
Yeah.
they let it fill
Right.
for the summer and then they drain it back down.
You mean Coolidge? Coolidge Park?
Yeah.
So
But that's not
Coolidge
right
is
next
a
to the
regular
river.
Chlorinated pool though, right?
Yeah,
Whereas.
and it's not.
The other is a dammed river that yeah. You know, you brought up the concrete. There is a section by the Victorian House where that river is already sort of got concrete buried walls, right? So
Yeah.
it wouldn't, maybe modifying that wouldn't, you're not really changing the substrate, you're just making it wider and put in a little concrete pool for it to kind of catch water. There's parking there. There's no parking up at the other spot where there is parking in the ball fields. So
That was the other thinking that I had about developing the Bresnahan Center, the former Bresnahan Center. You know, it's, you know, there's room for some cars, but it's
Not a lot.
not a lot. Anyway, so
anyway,
what do you want to do, Lorraine? What's the next step for the Riverfront project? We were going to do a simple clearing of invasives and brush to kind of, you know, is that
Yeah,
still
I think
going,
for now we
or-
start clearing it out. We defined an area, we flagged it up to the swing set. I'm gonna do up some sort of little proposal for a new swing set, some plantings, some cleanup. The cleanup won't cost us anything because we have 3 landscapers just ready to start their engines. I do not want, as a few people have recommended, to use Roundup. I know it's a battle. I know it's part of the process, but I think that cutting it and mulching it on site until it just gives up the ghost is a better way to go. I don't want to use preen or Roundup. I'd rather just chip it,
If-
mulch
if
it,
you
put it
have-
under a tarp.
if you have buckthorn, unfortunately, cutting it, it sprouts up harder than you.
Worse.
it's stronger?
Buckthorn's the one thing. Now, a lot of buckthorn, you can, if you have a good iron rod, you can uproot it. But when it gets big, that is the one plant I've only used Roundup once in my life. You don't spray it. That's the thing. You don't spray the Roundup. You
Yeah, you
drop
dip
it
it.
right on the cut stem. And
Yeah.
so something to consider, because if you cut it and mulch it, it's not going to hurt it. It's just going to keep resprouting until
It'll
you.
make it stronger, actually.
But
The-
if you cut it,
the-
it does get less of a root system. So maybe the next year you can then pry it out with a bar. I've killed a lot of buckthorn that way. You get it in the right time of year. You can eventually rip it out, but it's a battle.
Well, yeah,
Even if they mow it, like they say they would be mowing it as often as they mow Winchester Park, it still doesn't.
I guess I don't know. I've not tried that, but it does resprouts and it's
Let me tell you from experience, I was taking care of a conservation field that was infested with buckthorn. The issue is that you have to be, so with buckthorn, I would mow it right after it blossomed, before it started to make the berries. And then I would come back and I would mow it again because it would sprout up again and it would blossom like almost immediately. And I would mow it again and then wait until fall, and it would just be blossom. It would be like forming green berries at that point in time, and I'd mow it again. It would come up just as much in the spring. I would knock it back a little bit, but even trying to exhaust the roots. And the issue was, if you missed one time, you were off cycle. And the root balls, basically, it just, as soon as it starts photosynthesizing, it's like that root ball is huge. So especially for field buckthorn, it was an incredibly depressing battle. Incredibly depressing. I did that 3 years in a row. I barely knocked it back.
sounds
So
like we should at least start pulling the roots if we can.
yes, if you have a single stem buckthorn, that's great, don't cut it. Pull it up. Do not cut it.
And it's the
It's
most
way
satisfying
easier.
thing.
Yeah, it's way easier. If you get a single stem buckthorn, even if it's a tree or with like a couple of stems, yank it up. Do not cut it
Do you
if you're not
use
going
a
to
tree
poison it.
puller?
What?
You use a tree puller?
Yeah, like a weed wrench.
Yeah, weed wrench.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
these guys have it. I'm sure if we just let them at it,
Yeah.
they'd be willing to pull it out.
I had a grapple on my tractor and that was really great. You just dig the grapple in and pop them up and then shake the dirt out and put them in a pile.
So that's kind of where I am with it. I'm trying to, I want to determine who the previous owner of the property is, just for historical mentioning. Because I want to bring into the narrative that the dam, and I want to check to say that the condition of the dam too, because I would hate to go through all this work and have it all get blown away because they decided it needed to come out. So I need to determine the town's intention towards that, or understanding of the health and integrity of that dam is before we get too far. And how the property came into the town ownership. And the first dam, so there's the dam near the road and the upper dam. I guess the upper dam where the beaver pond is newer than the lower dam. And at least the upper one was a WPA project. And also the Conservation Corps did some part of it. I don't know if they did. I'm not exactly sure what they did, but they were involved in the creation of that pool area. So there's some history to it.
Yeah.
That I need to look at the deed and see if it was a tax taking or if the Briggs family donated it. The Bresnahan Association is just because the Bresnahans were friends with Briggs and they lost a friend in losing Mr. Bresnahan, young Mr. Bresnahan, I think, in the Vietnam War. And they had that site available to them. That's where they put his stone, but that's going to be moved to the new Bresnahan Center anyway. So it'll, I'd like to get the Briggs name back into that pool site, whatever it is, that riverfront area.
Sounds good.
So I haven't been doing a lot, but I've been listening a lot and just gathering information.
There's another potential pool site. I think it's probably less attractive than on the side of the road you're thinking, but if you go downstream to there's a mill pond with the factory there. It's now the furniture Triumph Play Systems.
Yeah.
That used to be the horse farm.
Yeah.
But there's also a mill pond in there that's kind of hidden in the woods. And I don't know if that's restorable as a swimming hole, because I know the family who owns Triumph, they would probably be open to, doing some kind of deal where the town gets the land and
Are you
reduces.
talking about the land behind Flowcat?
No, I don't think it's that far down. It's up closer towards Main Street. And that way you would have parking. It would be closer to the Victorian house. So you would have parking in there. I have no idea if it's an old mill pond or.
I think that land belongs to Val Dago.
Could be.
Yeah. Oh, because the only reason I bring it up is.
And you got no chance there.
Well, Pat Stewart, when Pat Stewart was trying to get the Sustainability Center to buy that land that's now the Triumph Play System property, she was looking at that mill pond as something to restore, maybe for even electricity or something.
I think that's Val Dago's property. I'm not 100% sure,
Okay,
but I'm
that's the
thinking
only. I assumed it because Pat was talking about it. I assumed it was the same parcel. Maybe not.
The
Okay.
bridge.
I don't know. I know she owns a piece of land in there and it's like right near there.
I may play around with the property maps. I'll try to take a look. Yeah.
The
And
bridge
it's probably
over
kind
the
of,
stream belongs to Lori Saccone.
okay, then we don't, don't.
So I don't know if that's near. So the Triumph people have to go across Lori's land
Mhm.
Yeah,
to their
yeah,
business.
yeah. And if you have the old pool bed on the north side of the road, that does, that would make a lot more sense.
I mean, there is a pool behind Flowchem, but Flowchem puts,
Ew.
no, I know, it's, I think they put alcohol in there, or they heat the temperature, the water gets heated. Hot water is injected into that pond that gets drained periodically by DPW. It's an
Oh,
ugly
really?
mess. Yeah. But I
Interesting.
think that, might have been an opportunity. And did you know that the Sweeney playground was once a pond, a small pool pond? They filled it. Bunch of good
Filled it.
old boys, their pickup trucks in those good old days before the Wetlands Protection Act, just filled up
Filled
their
it.
trucks, drove them over and dumped it in until it was a field.
Full, yep.
Wow. Oh, Anna, your mic's off.
Playground, did you say? Did you say?
Sweeney,
Oh,
down in South Ash. Yeah, there was once a little small body of water there. Well, okay, so I'll let you know how things go, but
yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think, Lorraine, you took on all of the questions or the input from the town. Do you want help with that? That seems like a lot.
you mean the survey?
Yeah, the survey.
How come you sound like you're in the water?
Yeah, you're breaking up pretty badly, but I don't know. It was just a once through of what, I'm certainly I'll start a list, and if you want to contribute to it, then I'll just start with the old one, update it a little bit. So it's not like I'll be working from scratch. I'll start with the original survey and go from there.
And I'll take a look. I think Gary, we had a meeting, was it 2014 or 2015? We had like a forum up in the upper library, and a lot of people came, and we got very good town feedback. I'm pretty sure I took some notes. I think I sent them off to a young woman who was helping with the revision. And there may be things that just never made it into the actual write-up, but I'll try to pull out those notes, because I doubt if we had a town forum again, we'd get the same people. They'd say the same things for the most part. They want a swimming area.
We could ask different questions though. and
Yeah.
we'll get different answers.
But I'll dig out those old notes, and at least I'll pass those along to see if there's anything new there.
I believe we're going to need another forum anyway.
Uh,
I believe. I mean,
okay.
we need the survey, and I think we also need another forum.
How can
At
we
least
do
could
that?
we
Covered,
could
though.
start with this
We
is
do
what
it
we
on
already
Zoom.
know.
Well, not everybody can do Zoom, but
Well, that's where we are these days.
Well, if we have to have a forum, I mean, they did the meeting last night at Briggs School, right?
That's because it was a governmental thing.
I was gonna
And
say,
we're going to see what kind of super spreader that was.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because I'm already teaching, I feel pretty safe with the right precautions. If we had to do a forum, if we keep our distance and wear masks. I'm doing that with students anyways. I would be comfortable doing something like that if it had to be held that way, but probably don't need to do it. We'll have a Zoom meeting, so it's fine.
okay.
Well, hopefully by the time we have to do the forum, we'll be better off with this COVID virus thing.
Got some vaccines going.
Yeah.
Well, how would we alert people of the Zoom meeting?
On the town website. I mean, that's our option. That and emails from the North County and ACT and,
Yeah.
get the word out.
Well, how many people in Ashburnham are on the NCLT mail list?
You must have quite a few.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head because our email list, I'm sorry, my voice is bad. Email list is more than just members. It's just like anybody who wants the
Right.
information. So I don't even know if I have that data in the MailChimp, list or whatever. But
And we don't need a large population there either. I think there was one when Conway School did the plan for us initially, not initially, but the second round. There was only like 3 or 4 people that came. I think Cease, you were one of them.
Yeah.
There wasn't many people there. So,
the other thing is that, You can distribute it through the schools.
Yeah, through the school.
And there's, other groups, you got the Legion and the clubs. And, I'm sure, CECE could tap into the hunters with the gun club
And there's a couple of Facebook pages in town.
Yep.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I'm trying to stay off Facebook for Lent, but
Good luck with that.
I feel so much healthier.
It's supposed to give up things that you really like and love.
It's an addiction. No, this is a good thing. You give up, you're fast from your addictions. This is
Very good. Okay. Sure. All right, guys. Is there anything else that,
I did have an idea, but I'm self-conscious about my voice, so I'll save it.
Yeah, you still are underwater there.
can you, like,
Yeah, what I have to do is I have to leave and come back, and if I leave, I'm going to eat dinner. I'm starving.
I know, I'd like to go home. I'm in the office because I needed to make sure I had a good connection. So our next meeting then. Calendar. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Here you go. This one.
Old
Okay,
school.
that works. It's better than easier than I have right now. What is the last Tuesday? of
The
month?
last Tuesday is the 30th.
The 30th, okay. So that'll be our next meeting. And we'll come back with a little bit of homework done.
What time? 6?
I think 6 works, if it works for you all, works for me. And I'm happy to be in alliance with the other boards and committees. It's been a while since we've had a relationship with anyone other than ourselves. So that's promising.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, my only question on that is, do we talk about the fees in the bylaw, or does that come somewhere else?
I think it becomes part of the bylaw, and I identified, I'll send it to you if I haven't already. There was one section towards the end where they just talk about fees in general.
Mhm.
And I think the fees for the stewardship should be right in there.
Right there, yeah,
It's towards the end of the document,
right,
instead of, because talking about money, you might as well talk about it all in one
right,
place.
right. Yeah, so,
But they'll need some guidance as to what a reasonable charge should be. They have no idea how much to ask for, and I would defer to the land trusts who do this on a routine basis. You never take nothing for nothing
right,
with nothing. And so what is the customary amount that you require with your donations?
Yeah.
So I defer to Anna on that.
Next time.
Writing board. All right.
Okay.
well, thanks,
Need
everybody.
somebody to make the motion?
Yes,
Okay, I'll do it. Move to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Owl and I.
Have a good dinner.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. But not soon enough.
Bye, Cease.
Start.
Bye.
Good night, Cease.
Take care.
You too.
Thanks for listening.
Well, you want to go longer?
Don't forget to shut that off.
I just, yeah, the recording is off.
All right. All right. I'll check you guys later.
Okay.
Okay, good
You're
night. I'll see you in a little bit.
Yes, you'll see me in a little bit.
I'm gonna go put the chowder on the wood stove and keep it warm.
Okay. See
Okay,
you soon.
bye, babe. Be careful.
Yes.